Perez, your science teacher at Estado Middle School, 6th grade science. Today, we're going to go over something that we started at the beginning of the year. We're not really supposed to go over anything new because you're not actually in the classroom, but we'll probably end up doing some new stuff here and there. Only if it's simple, it's easy to digest for you guys to use. And we'll probably be moving into making some stuff online. Now, during my class from 9:50, I'm a little off. It's 9:57 right now, Central U.S. time. We're going to be going over the scientific process. Now, there's my class. If you've been in my class, you've heard the what I actually go over when I first start talking about the scientific process. The scientific process is a way for people that are trying to do something in a scientific way. They're trying to measure, or they're trying to prove a theory or create a theory. They need a list of steps that every scientist will follow that will logically put all the information together and then be retestable by some other scientist somewhere. So what is the scientific process? Well, the scientific process it can have anywhere from 4 steps to 20 steps. I've seen the highest one I've ever seen is about 15 steps long. You start off with certain things, but I wanted to show you that there is mostly agreement that there should be a process, a list of steps a scientist takes, so that when they do something, it can be reproduced by another scientist to be proven, or to show that there's a pattern, or to just make sure that the science behind what you're measuring or quantifying or categorizing is sound. They want to make sure that you're not just guessing at this, you're not just making the stuff up. You're actually trying to make it so that in every situation, this will happen if these conditions happen. And they want to get as close to having that as possible, because I don't think there is a real 100% guarantee on about anything. If you look at the scientific process, you're also not just looking to prove something works all the time. You also might be looking for the examples of when it doesn't work. Okay, because it's called non-example. So you're using all kinds of proof, but then you also have ways that it doesn't happen. The exception to the rule. Okay, so let me just start by talking about the scientific process. The scientific process, I think what I'll do is I will go to window capture. Put this down a little bit. Okay, and I have my blank screen. Now I have a list of steps that I'm going to go over right now, but what I will do is I will put up the whoops, that's the wrong one. Right here. When I looked up the scientific method on Google, I got tons of hits as far as images go, because there's examples of different posters that teachers can put up in the classroom of the scientific process. And the scientific process can be as short as 4, and I remember seeing one over here a minute ago. Let's see. If you're explaining the scientific process to elementary students, you would only need a few steps, like this one right here. This one talks about 5 steps, the scientific process. Ask a question. Let's see. Let's open this up. Open in a new tab. Okay, and go here. Now it's a little blurry, but it says you can set your Google page. You go to the advanced settings. I'll show you right now. I did a search, right? And so up here at the settings, you go to settings and look for advanced search. When you do the advanced search, you go down to any size and change that to large. This way the images you get will be large and it'll be big enough to display, and they won't be, that one, the last one is pixely. Let me try that again using the advanced search and going down to the same image, or looking for that image anyway. It's going to be a large image now. And you notice the images look a little clearer. Let's see, I don't think that one, it's a little bubbles on that one. But as you can see, there's lots of, right here. This one doesn't look like it has a lot of steps. All right, In this scientific method poster, it says ask a question, observe, wonder about the scientific, make a hypothesis, make an educated guess, conduct an experiment, collect data, analyze the information, and report results. Okay, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 6 steps, and notice the way they are. It's ask a question, so they're starting with the question. Okay, make a hypothesis, the educated guess, conduct the experiment. You're going to have to plan the experiment and find ways to document what. And then when you plan your experiment, you don't want to have a lot of variables. A variable is something that will change, that can be changed, so that when you do the experiment, you know that your results change because of what you put in, that one variable. You want to limit it to 1, maybe 2 variables. You don't want to have a lot of variables, because if you have a lot of variables, then you're going to have to guess which one of those things that you changed. And if there's a lot of things to change, you got to guess which one thing that you changed altered your results. So if you have only one variable, you know that if I change that variable and the outcome changes, it's because I changed that variable. It's not because of something that's in the experiment that you planned. So you're going to have to make a detailed plan of your experiment, how it's going to be, implemented, what you're going to do, and what you're going to do with the information, how you're going to change the variable, and how you're going to keep everything else the same. And then you're going to have stuff like a control. This is something that you don't alter. You just leave that there on its own, and you don't alter it in any way, and it just sits there. And then you have a choice. That would be choice A. And choice B and C would be the things that would be altering. You would have they would use a placebo. Sometimes when they test a new drug, they will get a control group, people that don't have the drug at all. And then they have group A and B, where group A gets a sugar pill and group B gets the actual drug. And they will find the results from all 3 groups. The group that didn't get a pill, or they do their own thing, you get the results from that group. And then A and B, you see what the differences are. Now, sometimes there's something called the placebo effect. The people that are taking the drug, if they're given the sugar pill and they're part of group A, they'll be like, okay, well, I think I'm getting the drug. So, they, I guess, psychologically feel different. And so they report, feeling better after taking even the sugar pill. It's called a placebo effect. And sometimes if a person thinks they're taking something that's helping them, they actually feel better. I guess it's a way of psyching themselves out, make sure that they, to actually feel better. It's really interesting how it works out. Your brain can trick you into thinking that you're getting better. And then once with the drug, they have, of course, whatever the results are. So here, the scientific method, this look at ask a question, make a hypothesis, and educate a guess. Okay, I'm going to go to one of the other ones that I found, and this is the scientific. They don't start with a question, they start with purpose. But the purpose, if you look at it, it says, what do I want to learn? There's a question there. Research. Find out as much as you want about the topic. Now, again, research is a word that they use, I think, in a lot of ways. It sounds, well, in my opinion, the word research here is wrong. Research is not looking something up. Research is when you actually do sit down and you will go through a survey with 1,000 people. And you're compiling information. That's research. You're figuring out, you're doing something that no one's ever done before, or very few people have done before. That's research. You're going into a field where very little knowledge is, and you're contributing to that knowledge. That I thought was research. Maybe I'm wrong. So in the comments, go ahead and leave me a question about that being wrong. What they're saying here about research is that you're looking something up. And if I remember right from all the classes I took in college, they were like, well, this is a literature review. You're doing a literature review when you're quote unquote doing research. You're not actually doing research if you're just looking something up. You're looking at the literature that's out there. You're not contributing to the knowledge in that field or the knowledge in that subject or topic that you're looking for. So in this one, research, we'll just keep that way. It's not as confusing. It's just a simple way to put it, but I think it might be a little off. So research. Find out as much as you can about the topic. Hypothesis. Now, I'm not explaining what these are yet because I have my own explanation of what it is, and it's not different from these. It's just putting it in a way that might be memorable to students. Okay. Hypothesis, predict what the answer to the problem is. Okay, here it's a prediction. The other one said educated guess, which is what we're going to talk about. Experiment. Design a test to confirm or disprove your hypothesis. I like the way they said that because you're designing the test to make put your hypothesis through its paces. You want to see if the hypothesis is valid by testing it using a planned out experiment. Then it's an analysis. Record what happened during your experiment. That seems a little off to me too, because if you're analyzing something, you already have the data. You're not recording it. You already have the data, and then you're looking at it to see what kind of patterns you can pull out of it, or what kind of conclusions you can make from it. And then you've got your conclusion. Was my hypothesis correct? Okay, and I'm going to explain more about the conclusion a little later. So that's that one. So if you look at the first one, there's your scientific method. You look at the second one, they have a couple of different words here that are different from the first one. Like instead of asking a question, we're talking about the purpose. Making a hypothesis, that's the same hypothesis down there, but they forgot research in this one. They didn't do research here. Conduct an experiment, follow steps to test your hypothesis. Okay. Collect data instead of analysis. Okay. This one is collecting data, and then they have to analyze it. Okay. See, collecting data and analysis is separate, and you report your results. And on this one, it's a conclusion, and they don't have the reported results. Now, this poster is the scientific method. It has 6 steps: question, hypothesis, experiment, data, analyze again, and then report. So I don't know whether they're doing this just for the sake of copyright and they don't have like the same words. Because I think if you're using, I guess, there are copyright outlaws out there, and even not trademark, copyright, patent. A copyright is when you make something like this and you don't want people copying your work, so you have to make it at least 30% different. So maybe that's one of the reasons that these posters are made a certain way. And yeah, if you're out there watching this, let me know if I'm wrong. But I think they're trying to make sure that their poster is unique, so that when teachers buy it, they don't say, well, look, you have the same things in this poster as you do in this poster. So question, hypothesis, experiment, data, analyze, report. And this one says purpose, research, hypothesis, experiment, analysis, and conclusion. Okay, so there's a lot of the words that are the same, but every single one of these posters is slightly different. And there was a poster I had on earlier that only had 4 steps. And the earlier in science you go down to elementary, the less steps there are. So if you get to high school, you probably have more than 6 steps in your scientific process or scientific method. So here's how I explain it when I go to the scientific process. Oops. Okay. So I'm going to go down here, and I'm going to use the typing tool here. Text. All right. So the scientific process, all right, and I have a story that goes with this. I'm going to type in observation. The second one is the question. Third one, research. Remember? I'm going to put literature review, because that's what it actually is. 4, hypothesis, the educated guess. 5, the experiment. Well planned, with few variables. You want to limit it to 1 or 2. You don't want to get any more than that, because then you're, like I said, you're having to guess. Number 6, data. And I'll put collect and analyze here. And then conclusion. Now the conclusion is made up of a few things. I'll include right now what I know. You want to answer the following question. Is the hypothesis, whoops, right? And then, so is the hypothesis right? What does analysis tell you? And then, how would you change your experiment? Now, in my opinion, okay, come on. I got to make it fit here. I don't know why it's not doing it. There it is. And I'll finish that with the, okay. These are the 7 steps that I show the students when we first start school. We talk about the scientific process, and the next lesson is going to be over like the basic stuff, reading periodic table and things like that. So we got a plan, and I'm going over information that we started at the beginning of the year just to make sure that you remember it. This is something that's going to be with you anyway from now at least until the rest of your scientific career is over. Okay. I do it with it when I tell a story. I tell a story that, okay, we start off with, there's 2 ways to tell the story, and it uses all 7 steps of the scientific process. And I tell the students, well, you guys are already scientists. You do this all the time. And you don't think about it because you're not thinking, well, I'm going to do my science thing today. No, it's a normal, logical thing that people do with any situation they encounter. The first thing is observation. So I tell this story about a colleague and I. We were on. I taught in elementary before, so we go out to watch the kids on the playground to make sure that a playground duty is, all the kids are safe and everything else. So my colleague and I are talking to each other, and we're looking, and we're kind of facing. She's facing this way, and I'm facing this way, and we can see the entire playground that way, and we cover everything. And so. In the course of just saying, we talk about the weather. That's a nice day. Yeah, I'd rather be playing golf. Or, the little chit chat, and nothing serious because we're watching kids. So I see this look of horror on her face, and then I hear a thud. And it's one of those, I used to play football, so I know what it's like for a body to hit the ground. And that's part of what the observation is. Observation. I observed this, what I heard it. You have 5 senses. You see it, hear it, smell it, taste it, or touch it. And those 5 senses, I heard it, and I could tell she saw it. So our observation was, I heard something happen, she saw something happen. And the automatic thing that happens when you make an observation is a question automatically pops up in your mind. Okay, so when I heard that, I was like, what the heck was that? That's my question. So my observation, I heard it, I heard a sound, and then I automatically went to my question. My question was, what the heck just happened? So in my brain, to do the review of everything I know about that sound or that type of sound, I went back to my football days, and I remember, and when I had 3 brothers and 3 sisters, so we're always throwing each other all over the place. So I know what it's like for, to hear that kind of sound. I know that somebody hit the ground. Now, whether they fell over or, they fell off something, I don't know because I didn't see it. It wasn't part of my observation. My observation was I heard it, and I know that my colleagues saw it. So in less than a second, I heard the sound. The question popped up in my mind, what was that? And then my brain started racing to find out what that was before I even turned around. So my research already was done in my head. I knew that somebody hit the ground. So then I'm going to my hypothesis, and these are the first 4 things that happen in your brain in a split second. It's like when you hear a screeching, and then you hear metal and glass breaking. It's like, and then you hear the crash, and you're like, oh my God, what was that? Observation happened first, question happened second. Your brain says that sounds like squealing tires, broken metal and glass, and then you did your research, and then your hypothesis, I think someone had an accident just now. So you experiment by turning around to check to see what happened. Then you collect your data right there. When you turn around to look, I turn around and I see this kid on the floor going, oh, because he had got the wind knocked out of him because he fell off. Well, what I found out was this rocket-shaped slide we had in the playground. We had brand new equipment that year, and they put this really awesome slide that the kids climb up on a ladder, and they have a spiral slide that comes down, and the top looks like a rocket. So when they're standing up in it, they're like looking out the porthole window of the rocket, and it's got this really awesome red top with a blue sides and white door and everything else. It's really neat. And the kids were just all over it, and literally they were all over it. This one kid had decided that he was going to climb up and get on top of the red nose cone of the rocket, which is a bad idea. Now, I was facing one way and she was facing the other, but the kid had climbed up on the other side of the rocket where the teacher wasn't able to see. So by the time she saw, the kid had already made it to the top of the cone, which is a slippery kind of plastic. He lost his grip, fell down, and smack, landed on the ground. And good thing it had those the pebbles, even though it's rock. This stuff does move out of the way a little bit and cushion the blow. So he landed there. He's like, oh, making a funny noise. I didn't think it was funny, but I laugh now because I think about how silly it was, though, kind of the way he looked. And because he wasn't hurt, thank goodness. And well, that's the last thing you want as a teacher, to have a student hurt. You don't want it. But recounting the story, I'm looking back at it going, man, I'm surprised I didn't laugh at him, because he was boneheaded. He shouldn't have done it. But kids are kids, and they'll do what they do. So observation, I heard it. The question popped up in my head, what was that? My brain said somebody hit the ground when it used a mental Rolodex to research. My hypothesis, I think somebody hit the ground. I turn around to test my experiment here, and I collected data by looking at it. Yep, he's laying on his back. He's doing one of these things, flopping around, and he can't breathe. And I'm like, okay, he got the wind knocked out of him. So my coach used to help me out with when I got the wind knocked out of me in football. So I went over there and I, rolled him over, and I tried to, they do this thing where you pull him up and you kind of sit him up straight, and then have him try to breathe in and breathe out. Just take a breath. You lost you got the wind knocked out of you. And I said, you climbed up on the rocket, didn't you? He's like, ah! And you got to do it again. By that time, he'd got his breath back and he started crying. They're like, okay, let's go to the office. So the conclusion right there is you should climb up on a rocket. And that's the scientific process. Those are logical steps. I mean, I wasn't trying to be a scientist in the moment. What I did was I went through all the steps of the scientific process that I know. It's a logical sequence. It doesn't have to be like this order, but I'm sorry, the observation happened first. And a lot of the times when I see some of these posters, they have purpose question. Now, there's a reason they have the purpose question first. Okay, let's see, which one has that? The purpose, state problem. Okay, if you're in the science lab, then you don't have to make the observation first. That observation's already been done. You want the purpose. The purpose of this lab is to figure out how much water will be absorbed by this sponge. Okay, well, sponges absorb water. You can observe sponges doing that all the time. And certain kind of sponges, not all sponges absorb water. Some of them are used as loofahs, but that's a different story. So your scientific purpose in the lab, or the purpose question, is not the same as, let's see, hold on, I gotta hide that. Okay, so there you go. The purpose, or the sentence that you're using, is the statement you're using to do the experiment in the lab. It doesn't start with the question. Okay, so purpose, what do I want to learn? Here's the purpose again. This one, ask a question. It says observe and wonder about the scientific topic. Okay, so in the scientific method that I give the students, I'm going through the logical sequence of what a person would do. Like if you go and watch a magician, you go see a magic show for the first time, And the magician's like, okay, I'm going to do a trick, guys. I'm going to do a trick. And it's like, okay, see this, see this? Oh. Okay. Somebody watching the show is going to sit there watching. They're observing. They're using their eyes. And magicians, the whole point is to trick your eyes into thinking they saw something else. So the observation, oh, wow. And then your question happens, how did he do that? Like, whoa, how did he do that? Observation, question. Your brain starts to try to figure out, you know what? I think he's not, of course he didn't take the piece of his finger off. He did something. He must have done something. So your brain is racing through its index of trying to figure out what kind of stuff that is. That's the literature review he's doing. And then hypothesis. Oh, I think he did it like, and blank, blank, blank. You fill in the blanks with that. That's your hypothesis. So then you test it yourself. You try to figure out how he did it. So you're like manipulating your fingers in all kinds of different ways to try to do it. And then that data you've collected, you analyze it and then make a conclusion. I don't know how he did it. Or, oh, I figured it out. I know exactly how he did it. And you were like, is the hypothesis right? Does it tell, what does the analysis tell you? And then how would you change your experiment? Now, the reporting that was done in the other poster, that would be communicating with other scientists your results and your findings and developing your theory. Because there are steps to calling it a theory, and then steps to calling it, different. There's different levels of how your experiment will be perceived by the science community. So your conclusion has to have at least those three things. Is the hypothesis right or wrong? What does the analysis tell you? And how would you change the experiment on your next experiment, the next time you do it? So that's, I guess, basics of the scientific process. Scientific process is, most of us observe. Okay, now to explain the observation part as the end of this lab, since I started at 9:57, we'll end at 10:27. Observation is what normally happens first before you ask that question that you're going to test in your scientific process. It's a natural thing. In the lab, we go straight to the question because you don't need to observe, because we're trying to test something. And the whole point of testing that thing is so that we can make new observations and learn something about that topic that we're going to be doing the question over. So when I may try to make sure the students understand that, but that's the most difficult part. Which one do you start with? You start with a purpose, or you start with observation? And in real life, it starts with the observation. To give you an idea of what I'm talking about, observation. How does somebody know they want to be a doctor if they've never seen one? If you don't know what a doctor is, you have to observe what a doctor is and does, and then you can make a decision whether you want to be one. Same thing with any job, being a fireman, being a lawyer. If you don't know what a lawyer is, you probably wouldn't want to be one because you don't know what they do. Or a fireman, or a police officer, or any field. If you want to be a truck driver, you wouldn't know you want to be a truck driver unless you observed one and said, you know what, I want to do that. So your observation is the key part of any beginning of a scientific process, because without observing nature, all the great people that were philosophers, mathematicians, scientists, all wrapped in one, like Plato and Aristotle and all of these people in ancient times that were scientists, because what did they do? They observed everything. They didn't just, take it as it was. A lot of people's like, as long as it works, I don't care. If I can get my job done, I don't care how, they made the observation. But these guys, early scientists, that's all they ever did was observe nature, and they were like, okay, I'm looking at this tree. I'm looking at how it grows. I'm looking at these two trees, and these two trees are not the same. But they do grow in similar ways, and so they find they're looking at all the ways that the trees are actually similar, and how they grow, and how fast they grow, and how how much water they need, and what kind of conditions they can stay good. So they observed everything around them. No observation was left as a non-essential. Every observation they made had a purpose. So observation is a really important part of the scientific process. You can't really know what your world is like if you don't observe the stuff that's happening around you, like with this virus now. people have observed that you'll get sick when you come in close contact with somebody who is sick. And this is something they've established over thousands of years. People that are sick should stay home or stay away from other people that aren't sick. Otherwise, you're going to get sick. Everybody goes crazy and gets in a panic. Observation. Well, using gloves or PPE. We're going to go over this scientific tools also later on next week. I guess I don't know what else to say about the topic. If you want to leave questions in the comments below, go ahead and leave comments. Remember, go to Google Classroom. Go and find out what the current assignment is for the day. Everything else, I will send out a Remind 101 to make sure that you guys know that my classes are always going to be from 9:50 to 10:20. I guess that's it for the day. Make sure that you guys stay safe if you have to go out. If you want to, wear protective equipment. And now I'm saying the word a lot. I'm trying to break myself of that habit because every speaker has their own little tick. Make sure that you go out, take care of yourself. Make sure that you have some kind of wipes or stuff like that. Maybe we can go ahead and I've seen the stuff that you can carry around. But I'll make that a kind of like an instruction for later. I'm going to make some videos on how to do some of the experiments so that if you want to do the experiments at home, I'm using what I have here. I'm not going to be using the fancy stuff. I do every now and then I have stuff like I do have a I don't know if you can see it. I have a there it is. I have equipment, but it's limited. And I'm going to show you how to make your own equipment so you don't need to have a microscope. You can use your phone as a microscope. We were trying that before, but it never worked out. I needed to make little spheres of glass, and I think I figured out why mine didn't work, because other people have made them. So keep in touch with Remind 101. Keep in touch by going to Google Classroom. Please sign up. I need people signing up. If your parents have access, please have them go in and make sure that they can log you into Google Classroom. The parents are also able to see what's going on in Google Classroom so that you guys can coordinate with each other and get the assignments done. I will send you information on your grades. I need your packets for the next 10 days. This is day 5, so you have 5 more days to finish those packets, get them in, so that I can have them graded for the next 6 weeks. All right, stay safe, take it easy, and I will see you tomorrow. Let's see, gotta go up here. Thank you for watching.